What are your thoughts on ABS? For those of our viewers that don't know what ABS is, it's automatic balls and strikes, or known as robot umpires, MLB, All Star, and the future. What does that mean to you guys? What are your thoughts, opinions? Let's talk about ABS.
Dupree, what do you got? What do you got?
Well, for ABS, for me, as long as it doesn't try go into it may go into it years later, but go into the actual players being just robots and hitting the ball,
Mhm.
it you never know what could happen. AI is taking over everything, as you can see. Now we got umpires, but like it's not like NFL refs where we know the ref is done it for X amount of years. Like we know there's an umpire, but we'll never know him by name. Like they'll never like post like such and such has been umpiring for X amount of years and umpired the All Star game for X amount of years. So it's kind of like not known that much. So like
Mhm.
we'll see if it changes into being the pitcher or an outfielder or something like that. But right now, I don't think it like really affects. Well, like for me, it doesn't really affect that much. I still watch baseball, but not to that degree. If when I used to watch it as a kid, but still, like it could affect other people. But I don't see that
Mm-hmm.
much effect to it.
What do you think, Soraya? What do you think about using robots? You not, I mean, because it's not per se robots. It's a robotic system, is what it is. So basically, using how I mean, I can use NFL as replays. Okay, was this a catch? Was the big thing that that I see is just it's using that official a set strike zone, which is actually where Major League Baseball has in the handbook.
Mhm.
If you actually look in the rule book of where it states it, it's actually right there at the
Right.
center of the kneecap, going to the center of the chest. And unfortunately, when you're watching a game, it is not even close to that. But what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, so funny thing is, when I first started reading that, I did automatically think like robot on the field, like he's like, you're out, kind of thing.
Right.
But I think we're still going into like, I think we are moving towards that in the future, and I think it would be great. I know that it would have like more purpose in like knowing the strikes, knowing without having to have like double takes and have different opinions on it. So I also think there might be a failure in the system at some point, right? Because it's not ever guaranteed. So it's just kind of like I don't know. I see pros and cons to it all around, but I think we're all moving into that direction where robots is the new thing, AI is the new thing. So
Right.
that's just kind of my opinion on that.
See, for me, I mean, I'm old school. I spent many years umpiring between high school, college games, everything. I
Mhm.
never had the opportunity to umpire, any type of major league, minor league, or anything like that. College is still pretty enjoyable to umpire, um, but I was straightforward. People would always tell me, and I still deal with it this day. It's like you were always consistent. That's all that mattered. It might not be consistently right, but it was
Right.
always consistent. I'm just like, well, this is what I would give a person, and so I've always kept my strike zone in a certain location. I'm like, look, I'll give um, because of coming from a guy who's had his hand broke from a baseball.
Ugh.
I never gave in to that inside pitch, but I also made sure. But I'll give you a little bit extra on that outside.
Mhm.
And so that for me, like you're not going to have that human error anymore. But that's what
Right.
we're seeing. And they are going to officially release it here at the All Star game in Atlanta next week. So it's going to be interesting to see what we have because yesterday I was watching in one of the games I was watching. I cannot recall which game it was, but the count was 0-2, no balls, two strikes, and next thing you had three pitches that were clear as bell. They were strikes, but the umpire managed to screw up so bad he called them all balls. I'm just like, dude, that is literally over the plate.
Yeah.
Like, what are you freaking blind?
Right.
Um, but people are they're getting themselves distracted, and for me, I just feel taking out the human error also takes out the human factor of can a game get turned around because of a situation? You know, unless if it's some type of an algorithm that can basically help one team cheat over the other, but you can sit there and show the flaws. Now, my personal opinion, when I've umpired, we were critiqued because they got, we would actually have the games recorded. So this way we were able to critique what, okay, your efficiency, which Major League Baseball does do that.
Right.
They look at the efficiency of how, but to me, it's like, dude, if you are a Major League Baseball, if you're an MLB umpire and you cannot get 97% of your calls correct, you need to start either A, your first step is you're getting demoted to where you're doing nothing but field games, because as an umpire, you get paid at a different scale for behind the plate and versus out in the field. Same thing like when you're in the outfield. World Series, they run more umpires in the World Series than they do in the regular season.
Got it.
But the farther you are, that's why you see everyone rotate. You never see the same home plate umpire every game. Everyone just rotates around. Well, if you, like I said, to me, it's like, no, you need to start holding the umpires accountable. Stop trying to make this where, oh, well, we need to do this to take out the human error. No. You just need to hold them accountable. If they suck, get rid of them. I mean, that's what happens with head coaches.
Right.
Head coaches and it's not even them. The quarterback might suck. You might have, when you look at the NFL, you might have no wide receiver help. All of a sudden they're losing. Is it the head coach's fault? No, it's because you don't put a team around them. Who's the one to blame? Right. The head coach. It's not the quarterback. Even though the quarterback might have thrown 30 some interceptions on the season, same concept. I mean, I'm a huge Nolan Ryan fan. Okay. He's one of the oldest Major League Baseball players to ever play in the game. He was 47 years old when he retired, spent 27 years in the majors. But he holds the Major League record for 5,714 strikeouts in his career. Okay. But he also holds the Major League record for the most walks in a career.
Right.
So, I mean, that was one of the things that we were talking about last week on the show with injuries. Well, we're starting to see, 12 pitches. You got guys that are having, 6-7 pitch arsenals compared to the 90s and 2000s where you had your basic 4 seam. You had to worry about 4 fingers. That was it. Now they're having to use all this robotics to call the pitches so people can't steal signs. Man, that's what made baseball so unique. It's like it was you put the best versus the best.
Yeah.
And when you take out that human error, you no longer have the best. And so to me, I'm not a fan of the whole using robotics, using any type of technology for calling balls and strikes. But I do like the idea of allowing to challenge a ball and strike.
Mm-hmm.
The batters, I know right now currently in the minor leagues, they're allowing them to challenge a pitch. If they're called, if it's called a strike, I'm just like, no, hold on, let me tap the top of my head, top of my helmet, and they go back and goes into a review real quick, and they just confirm it with this technology that they're going to be implementing going into the All-Star game.
Okay.
So I'm for that. You are allowed your team is allowed so many challenges on a bad pitch or a good pitch that some might be, because it's only the batter. The pitcher is not allowed to challenge that. That's the catch. It's like, hold on, you just call a strike or you just called a ball a strike, or vice versa. Well, the batter's only going to challenge the strike calls. He's not going to challenge the ball calls because it's a freaking ball.
Right.
So it's like, well, you're allowing the batter to challenge things. Why don't the pitchers get to challenge something?
Yeah, that makes sense. Does it allow for error though within the system? Do you think? Is it?
No, as of right now, there has been. All it does, it goes straight back to the booth, and just like if you're watching Major League Baseball on Fox on Saturdays or whatever, how it shows the pitching frame. There's your box. That's what it is. Well, They need to show a 3-dimensional version because your pitch can start out of the zone, and and this is the catch. This is where umpires are struggling with. It is not where the catcher catches the ball. It's where the pitch crosses the plate.
Yeah.
And so that's where it's like, no, hold on. Was this a cross at this plate? Now where's it at looking at straight here? Realistically, it should take like 5-10 seconds max. You usually see those calls in minor leagues. It's about, like I said, about 5 to 7 seconds. And I'm all for that.
And how many challenges are they going to have? Because I think that would be weird if you're like challenging every time.
You're allowed. I do not know that answer. I do know that they've talked about limiting that like 1 per inning. But it's like if you're the first batter and you're just like, dude, let me challenge this right off the bat. Well, guess what? Batter 2 and 3 gets smoked because of he already challenged it right away. So I do believe they're going to try and implement something along the lines like, okay, you can only use it in the later innings. You know, baseball's trying to change the rules right now, and we've seen bases get bigger. We've seen the pitch clock come into effect. Now they're trying to bring this. I'm all for change because, and I've always stuck by this saying, change is not always good, but it is always going to be inevitable. It's always going to happen.
Right.
I'm not a fan of it. I used to get upset. You yourself being a Phillies fan, National League never used to run a designated hitter. People are like, well, we never did that in the National League. It's not allowed in the National League. Actually, no, it was allowed, but it just had
Right.
to be agreed upon between both managers at the
Yes.
beginning of a game. Now it's just implemented straight across the board. To me, I think they need to take out the Shohei rule. I can't stand the fact is that Shohei Ohtani can be listed as a pitcher and he's hitting, but when he gets taken out of the game as a pitcher, he gets switched into the designated hitter
Right.
and someone takes over that spot as the pitcher. It's like, no, hold on. How is this working out? I mean, so baseball's making a change because at the end of the day, it is business. They are trying to find what's going to be best for business. But to me, I think this is going to be a heartbreak for business. I also think, the whole, I love that they can challenge calls.
Yeah.
But the extra innings rule, starting a runner at second base, 78% of both fans, and they've done a major poll, 78% of fans, both minor fans, major fans, also along with major league players, have ruled that they do not like the new extra innings rule where they have someone starting at second base.
Got
I'm
it.
like, I can give you first base. I'm all for giving, hey, we're going to start with a runner at first, not at second. That's like in the NFL. I mean, you think of college, with college extra, when they go into overtime, it's like, okay, every person has a chance. And then once it goes into double overtime, come up with a rule like that where, okay, we're starting at the 20-yard line. Now we're going to, it's like, dude, just start having field goal competitions.
Yeah. Correct.
35, 40, 45, 50, keep on going until someone misses. That's where, to me, switch it over. Go ahead and let that thing stay as, as runner at first, not this whole second base putting in, at the beginning.
Right.
So to me, that's what's wrong it. But I do think that it's a good and a bad thing, like you said.
Yeah, definitely. I do see both points to that.